All right. Who stood up in the line to get registered for the conference? Yeah. I thought AI is here, you know. Uh, my name is Tarun Chopra. I lead data and AI for IBM. I'm here to spend 20, 25 minutes with you, share my experiences, what I'm doing across the world with all the clients. Uh, let's move forward. All right. So it's exciting time in AI, right? A lot of innovation is happening. I don't know about you guys, but at home it is helping me because my kids know for the first time in 20 years, what do I do, right? So it's helping me at the home front. A lot of innovation is taking place in the AI space, right? Across the stack, from application to platforms to models. So it's tough to keep up. It's tough to keep up. It's tough to keep up for me, and I spend 24 hours a day on this topic. What I want to cover in the next 20, 25 minutes is a small sliver of how do we bring trust in this equation, right? As consumers and clients, we're all trying to get value out of this AI innovation and revolution. How do we make sure there's a trust in the equation, right? At IBM, one thing we are very focused on, we're very proud of, is the trust and the brand reputation that we have built with our clients, right? And to us, this is not just a new thing or old thing. We've been doing this AI work over the last 12 plus years with Watson. And one of the main things, if you ask us, what is the main thing we learned in those 12 years working with big clients, enterprise clients, that to scale AI in enterprises is much more than technology, right? It's not just about technology. Everybody has technology, everybody brings it to the fore, but to really put this into production mode is about people, skills, processes, compliance, audit, regulations. There's a lot of discipline, operational discipline has to go in to make AI work, right? Even over the last 8 months, I've been traveling across the world, talking to hundreds of clients, right? A lot of clients are experimenting, doing POCs. Some are also in production from an AI maturity curve, but there's a lot of questions still out there, right? How to go from experimentation to productization. That's a big, big chasm to cross, right? There's a lot of innovation still left to be there to make that work. And that's the work I've been doing personally with IBM and the clients, and how to help clients get this into production mode. And trust is going to be a key factor. So let me start with a simple anecdote, right? In military, right? In the plane situations, you use a call signal. I got your 12, that's the plane in front of you. I got your 6, the plane that is in back of you. So in World War I, there was a famous phrase, I got your 6. That means I got your back. Trust was key. Trust was key at that time as well. Trust is key for us in our personal and professional relationships. And I will put this thought to all of you as we evolve into this AI equation, the foundation of AI. What is one of the most important things we all have to get together is trust, right? And it's not just us, right? As AI leaders in this room, as you bring AI into your environments, into your enterprises, one of the main things you need to be able to do is explain all the AI and data workflows to your end consumers. If you're not able to explain that, it is not going to get that traction. And that, with the recent Biden executive order that President Biden passed, kind of talks about it, right? What are the 4 fundamental things, if you haven't read the whole thing, what are the 4 fundamental things it talks about, right? First, develop standards for AI systems to be safe, secure, and trustworthy. Second, how can you differentiate between content that is original and the content that is AI generated? There's a lot of that out there, right? 3, as AI developers, as AI engineers developing these big, powerful models, how can you bring transparency into the system? 3, transparency, right? And 4th, in federal adoption of AI, how you build the safety standards. So those are the 4 key fundamental principles of the executive order that was passed recently. And in Europe too, with the EU Act that was passed in the summer, same principles are being discussed. So as the leaders in this room from an AI perspective, it's going to be our responsibility how we can demonstrate compliance to these key points. So one of the things I talked in the beginning as I talk to clients all across the globe, a lot of product POCs, experimentation, but a lot of leaders are still not sure and have ethical concerns about how to bring AI into production environments and environments, right? And there's 4 things that kind of resonates when I talk to them. First is explainability. Can I explain what the AI models are doing? Can I explain to my stakeholders? Can I explain to my customers? Can I explain to my consumers? What are they doing? Second, are they ethical? Just because the workflow is working doesn't mean it is ethical, right? Are you taking care of data privacy? Are you taking care about hate, languages, stuff like that, right? So you need to make sure your workflow can do that, right? So explainability, trust, explainability, ethic, bias, right? If you thought, traditional machine learning, I call traditional, was kind of a big black box, this Gen AI is even a bigger black box. So the input that is going in to create those models, how can you be sure they're not biased towards something, right? How can you explain that? How many people can raise their hand and say when they are using these models, there's no bias built in? Is it for sure? How can you demonstrate that? Those are the questions that you will be asked, right? And then finally, the transparency. How transparent we can be. And I see them as 2 things: input, output. Simple, right? How many people can also explain what input has gone into an OpenAI model? If somebody comes to you and say, explain to me what went in there, how many people can do that? And then how can you explain the output? So again, as I said, there's a lot of experimentation taking place, which is really awesome, really good. But big enterprises, big clients, they will have to think about all these things as they go into production. So explainability, trust, transparency, bias. So what are we doing at IBM in a couple of these things? First, our point of view is based on 4 key principles. One is open. Whatever we are doing, we have to be open. Our clients have been loud and clear. They don't want to go with one vendor or one provider or one cloud provider. They want open technology. So we have built the entire AI stack. And I will talk a little bit about the AI stack as well, which is very important. That kind of explains the innovation that is taking place across different modules. But openness. Second, targeted. What do I mean by target? What I've noticed in the client's environments, what are they struggling the most with is the skills, right? And every client is trying to tell its own unique AI story. So there's no one-size-fit model that is going to solve all the world hunger for our clients in the AI. Every client I talk to, they have their own unique use cases. They want to do their own things. They want to solve their own problems. It takes many, many different turns and curves to get to the solution. So there's a lot of customization taking place, right? Trust, as I talked about. How can you make sure there's trust in the solutions that you're building? And finally, how can you empower your teams, right? One of the things you want to think about is when you're building these AI workflows, it's okay for maybe 1 or 2 workflows to do by hand, right? But to scale it to 100,000, which our clients do that, you need a platform approach to do that so that your skills can be scalable, right? So your skills can be scalable. So open, customization, building trust in the system, and then a platform approach to build the skills. This is what we did with watsonx. So what is watsonx, right? It's a platform approach, 3 components to it that works by itself, but then it comes together as well. In simple words, a .ai framework, which is a framework for your AI builders to bring both traditional and Gen AI. Data, think of as your lakehouse open repository for all of your AI data. And the key thing that I talked in the beginning, watsonx.governance, to bring operational rigor to your AI. You have to do that and think about it from the beginning, not in the end. You have to figure out how you're going to weave your operational framework into the models itself. So when you're working with watsonx, for example, if you're working with a model, we automatically create certain artifacts for you that tells you where the model came from, where the data that got into the model. If you're doing prompt engineering, right? Capture all those prompts. Because in 6 months from now, in 3 months from now, if you have to go show it to your auditors and regulators what these models have done, because every time you prompt these models, you change certain behaviors of these models. So you have to capture that information and show that. You cannot go back and do a pen and paper exercise to figure out what is going on. One of the things I talk and stress with the clients, any workflow you will be building with Gen AI or AI, you have to live with it for a while. You have to live it for 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 16 months. So how are you going to operationally manage it? Right? So everybody gets carried away by the shiny new thing. Oh, look, I did some summarization. Oh, look, I did something here. But if there's no real value for the clients and you put some of these workflows into production, how are you going to operationally manage it? Because that's where the real cost and the tax is going to come in. Right? Everybody's going to forget the initial use case and in the initial journey, but the people behind the scenes that are managing all this stuff have to demonstrate after 3 months, is the model still working the way it was supposed to be working? Is there any drift going on the model? Is there a bias going on the model? Is the model still transparent? So you have to think about these things ahead of time, not after the fact, right? And that's what we're trying to do with the platform approach. This is one of my favorite charts. This is like an IBM point of view, but I think it applies to the entire thing. In anywhere you're going and talking to vendors, right? I dissect them into 5 different layers. First, what is your foundational layer, right? In our case, we're building all this on open platform, Red Hat, OpenShift, so forth and so on. Second, a very critical layer that people are forgetting, right, is your data layer. If you go to clients, I go to clients and I ask the simple question, do you know where your data is? How is your data integrated, replicated, governed, observed? If you can't even answer those questions, no point having the AI discussion. Right? Because if your foundational layer, a data layer is not strong, you haven't set the right data management controls or a data fabric or a data mesh architecture, and you know where things are, no point starting the AI journey because it's going to fall flat. So having a strong data layer in your architecture is very key. Third is where I talk about the AI and data platform, right? What are you using from a platform perspective to bring your AI journey? Fourth is your SDK API layer, right? How you integrate that into your broader ecosystem. And the fifth is, which I think is very critical, is the applications on top of it. That's where I think the market is going, right? You're going to see more and more application that does the end result for you instead of you building it from scratch. So if you're building a chatbot, don't go from scratch because there's hundreds of chatbot applications out there. You're going to be wasting your time building chatbots from scratch, building simple Q&A systems, building some systems that does procurement, HR, so forth and so on. A lot of these application systems are already built. For example, in IBM, we already have applications that does it, right? That has something called Watson Assistant, has something called Watson Orchestrate for your HR workflows, procurement workflows, have something called Watson Code Assistant, Microsoft has Copilot. So think about your use cases when you're building this journey, because if you're starting from scratch, I will attest a lot of applications are already out there to give you the ROI that you need. And the fun part of it, the beautiful part of it is you put the onus on the vendor to make sure all the workflows are working instead of you guys starting from scratch. So think about this architecture in this way: your foundation layer, your data layer, your AI layer, then how are you bringing this up from your SDK and API perspective and the applications you're using. One of the things, this is an IBM point of view, is around models. I will also attest, there's no one model that is going to solve all the world hunger. Our point of view is, and we have proved it time and time again, even Microsoft and everybody is looking to this approach, smaller models, purpose-built models, does the job very effectively at the right cost point, at the right performance point. Right? Because again, I want you to think about the operational governance piece of it. If you have a 300 billion parameter model out there that is inserted into your workflow and you're making your API calls, how are you going to refresh that model after 6 months? How are you going to make sure the life cycle of that model is appropriate? So think about those questions as you're going. And what we are doing at IBM, as you can see it across the stack, we have different models for different purposes. We're taking some open source models, we're building our own models, and then we are partnering with third-party models. That's where I think the ecosystem will be evolving. That's where I think where the puck is going. And you're going to see more and more in that space. And to bring that home, we introduced our own Granite series model. Just to give you a pulse of why I think transparency is so important. In our granite series model, if you see on the right side, we originally started with 6.8 trillion tokens, or 6.4. We removed all the duplicates, that got down to 4.9. We took all the hate language out, that got to 3.79. We took all the poor quality data, that got to 2.07. So we started with a big corpus of data, and by the time a final model was built, it was down to almost 1/3 of the tokens that were originally there. We published all the data sources that went into that model. We have all the commercial licenses so that if anybody is using it, we will indemnify for those use cases. That's what you need to start asking the vendors when you're using some of these technologies, is how we're building all these capabilities. What is going, this comes down to that transparent question. What is the input, what is the output? So at IBM, we have this whole, what we call a data layer, where we go through all of our data sources, we go through all the legal work, we go through all the compliance work, we go through all the certification work to make sure if somebody comes to us and talks about data lineage, or what was the data lineage for this model, we should be able to explain it. We should be able to explain. I give you an example. When we were building these models at home in the lab, I did some basic experimentation. I was the first tester of these models, and I typed a few things in there, and I suddenly start seeing a bunch of social security numbers coming out, right? And I asked my team, I say, I should not be seeing this thing. And in 20 minutes, the team was able to look at those social security numbers and tell me why that was the case. And the case was, we ingested few public Enron documents, if you remember Enron. And there was a lot of personal information in those documents, right? Because we have that whole data lineage structure, T structure, we were able to remove those documents from our ingestion. But if you don't know where your inputs and output sources are, you can't do this kind of stuff. You're going to have a lot of trouble doing this kind of stuff. And imagine if you have put this into your workflow, into your production environment, and somebody comes and complains to you, this is not possible, how are you going to take care of it? Who are you going to call? How are you going to manage it? A lot of questions to think about it. And this is where watsonx governance is generally available. It's in the booth. I'll give you the booth number as well, where we are focusing on 3 different things to help all the customers out. Think of it as a simple toolkit for AI workflows. It has 3 pieces. First, compliance. Manage AI to meet your safety and transparency regulations and policy. Think of it as a simple nutrition label for your AI. Risk. When I think about AI and models and workflows, I think of them in 2 different pieces, at least from my mind. One is when it is in an idle state. What do I mean by that, right? Who created the model? What went into the model? What was the data that was used? And the second is when it's in a running state. As the model is being run as part of the workflow, how do you make sure the original policies and marks you set up for your drift, fairness, bias, the model is still doing it? In 3 months from now, these models deviate. You need to make sure that you can quickly detect that to correct it. Now, for 1 model or 2 model, you can do an eyeball test. But we have clients that have 100 and 200 of these use cases in production. You can do an eyeball test. You need some tooling in there to help you out with those processes, right? And finally, the lifecycle governance, right? The governance, the manage, monitor, not just for IBM models. This governance framework works with any models that are out there. You don't have to use IBM capabilities and technology because we know our clients have multi-vendor ecosystem. You have OpenAI, you have Vertex, you have Azure. The governance framework, or whatever governance framework you're going to apply, make sure that framework works with all this ecosystem. That is very key. That is very key. So in terms of how you think about it, monitoring and alerts, tracking your transparency, and the evaluation and documentation. All that feed into your compliance framework. And just to bring that to light, I'm going to use the Citibank example. Citibank, for example, has 2,400 internal auditors. 2,400 internal auditors. I'll pause for a second. Now imagine for them to bring any use case into production, what they have to go through. What they have to go through. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. And this is where Citibank and us are helping each other, and we are bringing AI capabilities to them to make sure these use cases can scale in production environment. In IBM, we have what we call, Chief Privacy Office team. Any use case that we build has to go through our internal audit process. This is where we kind of said, we're not going to do too many images, or we're not going to work on the images because we didn't thought it was ethical to do that. So any use case, now, do I like our CPO office? I'm not sure. Because it brings a lot of other complications. But we have a process in place. Because what's happening at IBM, I'm sure is happening in all of your companies. We have hundreds of silos doing their own things and duplicating and replicating this whole thing. And I can bet you, I don't need to know, I don't need to raise of hands, but in your companies as well, same thing is happening, right? Same thing is happening. For experimentation is okay. But if you're going to bring them into production, that's a very different discussion. So you need some sort of simple framework where at least everybody's coming together and discussing these things in open. And we're using watsonx governance capabilities inside IBM to really have dashboards, monitoring capabilities to make sure when these workflows are into production, we can go effectively manage it. I do want to leave a few minutes for the questions. If there's any questions, I'm going to be brave enough to take a few questions. I like doing that, so any question is fair game. And then recently, IDC came up and recognized IBM as a leader in this space. So talk is cheap. Right behind these doors on the left side, we have the booth. We have IBM people out there that can take you through all the live demos, capabilities around the watsonx platform, watsonx governance capabilities. So I will highly encourage, because seeing is believing. When I see governance in action, it really brings me to light what is going on. For example, right, I was talking to a client, we have something called policy packs notion, taking the regulations and then in some sort of automated way, making sure when you're building these models, it tells you, yes, you meet this requirement, no, you don't meet these requirements. Seeing is believing. So I highly encourage all of you to spend some time there and get some insight. Well, thank you. Hopefully this was useful. We have a few minutes for some questions if anybody's interested in any question that I can answer. Sure.
So my name is Arslan. So a lot of, for industrial clients, they have a lot of IoT sensor data. A lot of the stuff that people are talking about is text data. I know, your IBM research is working on time series foundation models, et cetera, around that. So can you share some of the roadmaps when those models will become part of watsonx, et cetera?
Yeah, so great question. I will answer it in a different way, Arslan. I think what I'm seeing in the marketplace, building model from scratch is an expensive proposition. So what I'm seeing, clients are basically, and I also see 80 to 90% of the use cases can be done by few models, right? Or text, speech, blah, 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 so forth. And clients are doing some sort of, not even fine tuning, right? Prompt tuning and RAG patterns to kind of go make those use cases work. So we are building some time series model, as you know, right? But there, it's more of a partnership discussion with clients. So for example, we partner very closely with NASA to bring a geospatial model. We're working with big telco provider to bring time series model. So when I say about these other different models, Arslan, I think there needs to be some collaboration between the industry and the vendors, because the cost of building those specific models is very huge. So the use case has to be there. The other party has to be big. So just to give you another example of this industry use case, I was with a big airline CIO, and they have so much maintenance data available. They want to build a very specific model. And then they're part of a bigger consortium like the Sky team or Star team, and they want to bring their other airlines together as well, so they can be very prescriptive. But it needs that kind of bigger momentum or somebody has just deep pockets, which some of our clients have. They're building models from scratch. So if there's interest in stuff, I will say IBM is very interested. We are working with many clients that are building very unique models. I'll give you another example. I was with a financial client, and that financial client is in the business of, giving information to all the other clients. So they've been doing it for 60 plus years. For them, this Gen AI is very transformative because it's going to really impact their business big time, because their thought is, if somebody can just ask ChatGPT or somebody, go collect all this 4K information from me, why they need me? They can do it. But their difference is their data. So they are working with us, bringing 60 years worth of data, and they're transforming their business model from sending PDFs and Excel files to the clients, but creating a model as a service. So instead of sending this information, a client can come to that service and ask the questions. But that's a big partnership that we and them are going together, where we're taking all their data and building. So to me, it's going to be a partnership model where some of these use cases will start to come in, because it will require a lot of capital. I don't know if you guys know the NVIDIA GPU, before this Gen AI and NVIDIA GPU now, it used to be $2,000. Now it's freaking $45,000, right? So it's crazy. Hopefully I answered that question. Any other question? Yes, please. It's right over here, the mic. I know it's lunchtime as well, so if I won't be hurt if people want to leave, okay?
Hey, can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Tarun. My name's Hakan. I'm at IBM. I was curious to hear how you see the future of inference on sensitive data, right? Are there technical approaches you believe that can push the boundaries on doing inference or even training on sensitive data, or do you feel like it's a regulatory issue? You know, what's your opinion?
You know, I think on the sensitive data, again, I will start with, do clients know what sensitive data is first? Okay, I can tell you a lot of clients don't have a good handle of that too. So to me, it will really be an interaction between IBM and that client specific to see how can we do it, and what are the use cases we're even building upon for, right? It won't be for generic use cases. So to me, there's a lot of, I mean, I've seen some things like homomorphic encryption and other things, but they're just too far away right now, because the performance cost of all those techniques is just too cumbersome. What am I seeing is where clients have a good handle of their data for specific use cases, we are working together in that way. And then doing that inference, that's why, you know, one of the things I realized in this Gen AI, just for this audience, I thought it's going to be all cloud, okay? But what am I seeing is mostly on-prem. And it took me some time to figure out why it is on-prem, right? Why clients are asking us this on-prem stuff instead of going to cloud. But think about it, right, from their logic. If their data is their crown jewel data, why would they put that data in a black box of generative AI and say, go do whatever the heck you want to go do? They are very nervous. They're very concerned. So they want to bring it in-house to either do prompt tuning, fine tuning, or whatever, or sensitive data, right? They're very concerned of moving their crown jewel data and putting on top of a Gen AI model. Even though every vendor is saying nothing is bad is going to happen, everything is going to be fine. You just saw what happened with the OpenAI a couple of weeks ago, right? You just don't know. But a lot of clients are saying they don't want to take that data and put into a model that is sitting somewhere in the cloud and bring. They are just not comfortable. So I'm seeing a lot of use cases and patterns where clients are bringing it in-house, specifically for the golden use case, right? A lot of CIOs are not willing to spend $10 million to summarize emails, okay? Let me just say, when they find out the cost of what that cost is to summarize email, they're like, why I need to summarize email? Why do people can't do it? Seriously. I don't know if you guys are seeing, because the ROI is starting to hit. ROI is starting to hit, so everybody's starting to ask the question, what is the benefit of doing all this stuff? If you're not seeing a 10x benefit from a use case, it's not worth the investment. It really is not. So what we have done in IBM, some of the stuff, right? We have automated the entire HR workflow. We went from 2,500 HR professionals to 400 HR professionals. Right? But over there, even the Gen AI is a very small piece of the puzzle. It's a lot of other automation of the workflow. It's not going to solve all the world hunger. Right? Same thing with procurement, same thing with all. So that's some of the stuff I'm seeing. A lot more to be done in that space. Any other question? Well, hopefully this was useful for everybody. Thank you so much.